The quality is so much better than I expected. It feels like something way more expensive. Honestly, it's kind of a steal. Show support to Nubian Narrator and cop some merch before it's sold out again.
So the raving alcoholic pervert has successfully filed bankruptcy after being indebted to a gay Zionist. So in response to all of these allegations, what does he do? He gets drunk on a TikTok panel.
That's what I'm saying, actually. What I'm trying to say is that if it's a hotel thing, a hotel is not a bad place for a person to be. It's actually a really great place for a person to be. People go on holiday and they go into a hotel. You know what I'm trying to say? So what is...
Who needs a house, eh?
Not for me to question your life choices, but aren't you supposed to be a preacher that preaches a God-given religion? Back to the Allah-given story, which is Mohammed Hijab. He firstly spends all of his money on 5-star hotels in order to bang the secret second wife that he didn't tell anyone about, but then later came out and accused him of emotional blackmail. Then the story got even juicier because the group chat leaked messages between him and other dahi found out that he was trying to lie about having a secret second AI YouTube account, then went on even further to lie and have a campaign spread about her that she was mentally ill. This guy is mental, and I can't even say this to his face because the fucker's blocked me. But anyways, in conclusion, Islam is a spent force, Mohammed Hijab is a caveman, and if he wants to sue anyone, he can't anymore because all the money is in an offshore account.
Today we're talking about something almost too delicious to be real. A prominent self-styled warrior of social media, Mohammed Hijab, has apparently filed for bankruptcy after trying to sue Douglas Murray and losing spectacularly. Yes, that Mohammed Hijab. The guy who thought dragging a heavyweight columnist and a venerable magazine into court would end with compensation, vindication, and maybe a Netflix special. Instead, the judge ruled his own testimony worthless, and now he's apparently broke. It's the kind of self-inflicted legal fail that whispers sweetly to the internet, "Go on, put that on YouTube." But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, the origins of this facepalm-inducing saga. The Spectator showdown. Back in 2022, when Leicester riots erupted after a cricket match and tensions between communities spilled into chaos, Douglas Murray, a right-leaning columnist with an audience, wrote an article in The Spectator. In it, he described Hijab as a street agitator who whipped up his followers and made inflammatory remarks. Hijab didn't take it well. In fact, he took it to court. Yes, he thought a legal battle against a major magazine and one of the UK's most visible commentators was a winning strategy. The kind of move that says, "I'm so right, I'll make them pay." Let's pause right there. There's bravery, and then there's blind self-confidence. Filing a libel suit against a seasoned journalist and a big magazine is like challenging a grandmaster to chess because you once beat your friend Gary. The judge, an unimpressed human being appointed to dispense justice, took one look and said, "Nope." Not only did the court dismiss the claim, but it concluded that Murray's article was substantially true and that Hijab had lied on significant issues in his own testimony. In legal terms, that's a faceplant, but in internet terms, it's performance art. Listen to the poetry of the court's assessment. The judge described Hijab as combative and constantly argumentative and ultimately said his evidence was worthless. Worthless. That's not a lawyer saying you didn't convince us. That's the court saying your whole performance was a dud. It's like telling a boxer, "Nice uppercut though, your whole fight was worthless." And remember, this is a public figure with over 1 million followers on social media who just tried to convert nastiness in the press into cold hard cash via UK litigation. The outcome? Loss, no damages. And a bitter taste in every legal textbook that will ever cite your name. This is not just lost the case. This is stepped into the ring and got politely escorted to the exit. And now, bankruptcy. Now the punchline. After losing this legal face-off, Hijab has reportedly filed for bankruptcy, which, to the casual observer, is like watching a guy with a megaphone loudly declare he has no idea how money works whatsoever. It's poetic in a way, almost Shakespearean. if Shakespeare were a meme-writing Web3 influencer who tried to litigate his way to respect and ended up legally insolvent instead. You have to appreciate the cosmic irony here. He sued for reputation damage, and the only damage that was serious ended up being to his wallet. Someone should make that into a song, or at the very least, a TikTok soundbite. Let's be honest, it's hilarious to watch a lawsuit backfire so thoroughly that the claimant ends up in bankruptcy proceedings. But there's a darker angle too. This wasn't a random lawsuit. It was a high-stakes legal gamble, played out against a seasoned journalist and major publication on the biggest possible platform, the UK High Court. Winning would have validated his narrative, boosted his reputation, potentially paid damages, silenced critics. Losing has now affirmed the truth of his critics' statements, branded him a dodgy witness in a court record, left him financially exposed, given everyone else the receipts. This is the legal equivalent of showing up to a sword fight with a pool noodle, insisting it's just as effective, then wondering why you're underwater. Here's the part the internet loves to forget. In the UK, under the Defamation Act 2013, you have to prove not only that a statement was false, but also that it caused serious harm to your reputation. If you can't prove that, you lose. Then the defendant can argue their version was substantially true, which is exactly what happened here. And because the judge decided Murray's article was true in its gist, that hijab did indeed stir tensions and engage in inflammatory rhetoric, the case collapsed. Legal costs, around £850,000. Financial aftermath? Bankruptcy. This is not called justice served. This is called self-inflicted legal self-destruct. If you really want the seasoning on this comedy casserole, before filing the lawsuit, Hijab had been involved in controversial public speeches, including one in Leicester, where he addressed groups wearing masks and used rhetoric a judge later described as inflaming tensions. He also participated in protests in areas with deep sensitivities and made remarks later scrutinized by both media and the courts. So this wasn't some small error or misunderstanding. It was public behavior that became part of a legal case, and then it was dishonesty in court as assessed by the judge's written ruling. The judge didn't just throw the lawsuit out politely. He said parts of Hijab's evidence were not credible. He said they were like rhetorical slides in a bad PowerPoint. That's rough. Bankruptcy as performance art. Now let's tie the bow on this bizarre legal saga. Filing for bankruptcy after losing a defamation suit is like challenging LeBron James to a dunk contest because you once jumped off a curb. Bringing a kazoo to a violin competition, then suing the orchestra for slander. Arguing that your TikTok disclaimer entitles you to a Nobel Prize. It's not strategic. It's not savvy. It's not even enthusiastically wrong. It's just existentially misplaced. And for followers, supporters, critics, and neutral observers alike, this sequence of events says something wider about online influencer culture. It's a world where people believe visibility is invincibility, where shouting loudly makes truth bend, where courtroom reality remains unpleasantly resistant to algorithmic logic. The humiliation of legal deficit. Imagine prepping your entire online identity around being controversial. As a defense mechanism, a brand tactic, a rallying cry. Then imagine trying to ground that online identity in legal legitimacy by forcing a high-stakes courtroom battle, only to be soundly rejected by a judge who literally tells you that your evidence is not worth the paper it's written on. If that doesn't hurt your pride, nothing will. And because this plays out in the public forum of the High Court, it's not just a loss, it's a published loss. It'll be cited in other judgments, legal textbooks, and internet memes for years. The bigger cultural lesson. There's a deeper takeaway here, beyond the memes and the schadenfreude. In our digital era, influence is often confused with authority. Followers are mistaken for credibility. Loud voices are assumed to represent truth, but none of that holds up in a courtroom or in serious journalism. The fact that someone with more than 1 million followers can lose a legal battle so badly it results in bankruptcy is not just funny. It's a sobering reminder of the difference between online clout and real-world consequence. And if you're wondering what Hijab thinks now, as of the last reports, he has denied he intended to attack entire communities, insisted his grievances were misinterpreted, and hinted at appealing the verdict, which in the courtroom context is like refusing to accept you lost a race after you tripped over the starting line. Let's slow this down for a second, not to soften the critique, but to sharpen it. Because this story isn't just funny, it's instructive. The internet wants this to be a meme, a dunk, a quick laugh, a ratio and move on moment. But underneath the comedy is something deeply revealing about the age we're living in. We are watching in real time what happens when online identity collides with real-world consequence. Mohammed Hijab didn't lose a Twitter debate. He didn't get clipped in a comment section. He didn't get embarrassed on a podcast. He walked into the High Court of England and Wales and lost. Publicly, formally, on the record. And the difference between those two worlds is everything. The internet rewards confidence. Reality rewards evidence. Online, you can build a following with confidence, volume, performance, rhetoric, emotional persuasion. You can say things strongly and be rewarded for how convincingly you say them, not how true they are. You can dominate a conversation simply by being louder than everyone else. Courtrooms don't work like that. Courts don't care about your followers. They don't care about your platform. They don't care about your charisma. They don't care about your audience loyalty. They care about evidence, consistency, credibility, facts, verifiability. And if you don't have those, the performance collapses. That's not oppression. That's accountability. And the moment that performance collapsed, the consequences were not symbolic. They were financial, legal, structural, real. That's why this matters. Influence is not invincibility. We've created a culture where too many people believe that influence protects them, that being popular shields you from consequence, that having supporters means you must be right. This case obliterates that illusion. You can have a massive platform and still be legally wrong. You can have loyal followers and still lose in a court of law. You can be persuasive online and still be unconvincing under scrutiny. That's not a flaw in the system. That's the system working exactly as it should. And the irony is brutal. The very mechanisms that built his online reputation did nothing to protect him when it actually mattered. Not one follower could object on his behalf. Not one retweet changed the ruling. Not one viral clip altered the judgment. Because truth, under examination, doesn't bend to performance. The real cost of ego. Let's be honest, this lawsuit didn't need to happen. People file defamation claims when they believe their reputations have been destroyed unfairly. That's legitimate. That's a legal right. But defamation law is not designed for people who want validation. It's not designed for people who want to punish critics. It's not designed for people who want applause. It's designed for truth. And when ego pushes someone to escalate conflict into court without fully understanding the terrain, the court doesn't care about your intention. It cares about what you can prove. The cost of getting that wrong isn't embarrassment. It's tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, sometimes apparently bankruptcy. That's not comedy, that's consequence. The comedy is only in the hubris that led there. This is a cautionary tale for every influencer. Strip away the names, the politics, the personalities. At its core, this is a story about what happens when someone mistakes online power for real power. It's a warning to influencers who think they're untouchable, commentators who believe volume equals authority, personalities who confuse audience loyalty with objective truth, people who forget that institutions still exist beyond the internet. Because while the internet runs on vibes, the legal system runs on evidence, and evidence doesn't care how famous you are. The most uncomfortable truth. Here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Losing this case doesn't mean Mohammed Hijab is uniquely foolish. It means he's human. He overestimated his position. He underestimated his opponent. He misunderstood the battlefield. That happens every day. What makes this moment stand out is that it happened so publicly, so dramatically, and with such high stakes. The laughter is coming from the contrast, from the gap between confidence and consequence, from the difference between persona and outcome, from the distance between expectation and reality. And that contrast is where the lesson lives. He tried to use the law to protect his reputation. He tried to force a reckoning. He tried to assert control. Instead, the law judged his credibility, published its findings, and left him in a materially worse position than before, not because the system was cruel, but because the system functioned exactly as designed. That's not persecution, that's process. And the process didn't go his way. If there's one lesson in all of this, it's painfully simple. The internet rewards whoever sounds the most convincing. Reality rewards whoever can prove the truth. And when you confuse the two, the consequences aren't digital. They're legal. They're financial. They're permanent. He didn't lose an argument. He lost in court. And the difference between those two outcomes is everything. Not left, not right, just real.